Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Today's video is regarding Nancy Guthrie, and we've been sort of revisiting different elements of the case recently. So if you want to watch us live discuss it, you can even call in. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, and then during the show you can call the numbers that are on the screen and discuss it. But what we're going to be talking about right now is the abductor of Nancy Guthrie just a crazy nut job? So before we get started on this, I just want to say that I believe that the ransom letters are real, the first two that were sent. And we know that Savannah Guthrie believes they're real, and the FBI seemed to believe that they're real in one of or I think the last press conference that they had. I don't know if they ever convinced Savannah that they don't believe it anymore. I think if they started believing that those weren't real, they would have said something to Savannah. Now, Savannah said a person that would send a fake ransom note really has to look deeply at themselves. To a family in pain, Savannah said. But I believe the two notes that we received, that we responded to, I tend to believe those are real. All right, and then we also have this about those ransom letters. One note emailed Monday to KOLD TV newsroom in Tucson included information that only the abductor would know, anchor Mary Coleman told CNN. When we saw some of those details, it was clear after a couple sentences that this might not be a hoax, she said in an interview aired Wednesday. So I tend to believe that those are real, and that's what we're assuming here, is that they're real. So let's get into some of the possible scenarios, and then we will look at the nut job theory. So when you look at the case, there's different options out there. You have abduction for ransom that went wrong. You have robbery gone wrong. You have perhaps a sexual assault. A whole bunch of different elements, but the one that doesn't seem to be discussed as much is the sort of the nut job theory, that this is sort of like an arsonist or almost a serial killer that likes to have attention situation. So let's just take a look at abduction for ransom. You guys all know that when we're going over this case, it seems like whenever there's a theory, there's always something that gets in the way. You know, that you go, yeah, that just isn't neatly packaged there. For example, the abduction for ransom that went wrong. Well, then you might ask yourself, why did they send the ransom letter to TMZ? Now, it could be that they sent one to TMZ because they weren't hearing back from the news outlets, so they didn't know that they actually got the letters in their inbox. So he sent it to TMZ, but that seems like an extreme measure where you know TMZ is going to blast it out to the entire world, where most ransom attempts are done kind of quietly and privately behind the scenes. So that's the element that sort of makes that one not make as much sense. If you think about it, the killer went into the house, I believe, with the sole intent of removing Nancy Guthrie from the home. They went to the front door and removed the surveillance camera because they're going to be parking a car right here, and they know that. All right? And so they bring her out, and then let's say for some reason she passed away and they still wanted to get their ransom, they would then send it in and hope that they didn't have to use proof of life, and that might be why in one of Savannah's Instagram messages, she brings up, hey, we understand now. And from the beginning, I understood exactly what she was saying in that message when she said, we understand now. So let's just play what Savannah Guthrie said. And this is actually from February 7th.
We received your message, and we understand.
So what she's saying, we received your message, and we understand our mother is not alive anymore.
We beg you now to return our mother to us so that...
And what they're saying now, we beg you to return our mother to us, meaning her body to us.
we can celebrate with her.
So we can celebrate with her body here.
This is the only way we will have peace.
And that's the only way they're going to have peace. And that's an absolute truth, that you only have peace if you can actually bury the person. And then after that, there's also no peace until you find the perpetrator. But that's less than the burden you have when you don't know where your loved one is.
This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Yeah, so basically what she said here was, we understand that our mother is not alive anymore. We are willing to pay you to tell us where our mother is so that we can have peace. And that's what she's saying here. Now, it's interesting that that's what they're feeling. And 2 different ransom notes were put out there. One was on February 2nd, I believe. And then one just a couple days after that was received. And that one apparently was a little bit more ominous sounding. And then this is a response to that message. They need to have proof. And, you know, the person who sent the ransom note isn't likely going to receive anything unless there's proof of life or you can prove to us where her body is. But at this point, if it is a ransom that went wrong, they probably would just want to wash their hands of the entire case because she's not alive anymore. And the more you communicate, the more likely it is that the FBI will be able to track you down. So they may have just washed their hands at that point and never contacted them again. And, you know, unfortunately would have put Nancy's body somewhere out there somewhere. All right. And then the robbery gone wrong. That's another one that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like in a robbery gone wrong, why would you take her body out of the home? You know, he had a balaclava on, gloves, etc. And then also, if it was a robbery gone wrong, why did you do the ransom notes? To draw more attention to yourself. Maybe you were trying to get money a different way because you weren't able to take anything from the house because something went wrong and you had to get her out of there. But it doesn't really make sense in that scenario why you'd want to take her body out of there. So there's always something that makes you go, yeah, that doesn't quite make sense. And then the sexual assault, which is definitely a possibility. Believe it or not, I've covered many cases out there where elderly people were assaulted like that, and it's really tragic. I mean, these people spend their whole lives and they're in their last years of their life, and then some psycho person assaults them and kills them. Right? But what doesn't make sense about that is why would you do a ransom note? If there was a sexual assault and you took her body, so the thing is, the reason her body would be removed in a sexual assault was to make sure that your DNA wasn't left at the scene, right? So that would make sense to remove her body or remove her person. I think she was alive. I think I'm the first YouTuber that mentioned she was still alive when she was leaving the house because of the expirated blood pattern that is seen outside. You know, if we look at, I think it's right around there. When Brian Etten put this out, I immediately said that looks like expirated blood because of the Jodi Arias case and the sink. I remember covering that. And then now that's become the widely accepted belief out there that that's exactly what that is. So she is alive while she's being removed from the home. But if it was a sexual assault, why would you send ransom notes? That doesn't make any sense. So now we're left with the nutjob theory. And believe it or not, the nutjob theory, it actually makes the most sense of all of them. So picture it like this. You know, when we watch the surveillance footage, let's just watch this. Look at this guy right here. Does he look nervous about anything? He's just lumberingly slow. He's just going to have it, you know, do whatever he feels like. And I don't think this guy's an idiot at all. I think that is absolutely being misrepresented out there. You have a lot of people saying he's bumbling and dumb, and I don't think so at all. He knew that he was going to remove the camera there. He went up to it and probably just thought, you know, he could just take it off if he wanted to. But then he thought, maybe I'll rip my glove. Let me see if I can find some sort of a plant here I can just pull it off. You know, he didn't worry about it. He didn't care that he was on the camera. The only reason he removed the camera was because a vehicle was going to be parked there. So this is AI. These are images I made using ChatGPT. And so I think it's something like this. When he took Nancy out, it looked something similar to this. You know, maybe she coughs over here and then walks down, and then there's a vehicle at the end of the driveway. Now we don't know what type of vehicle it is or anything like that. And then he kind of walks her down the driveway and then makes his way to the vehicle there and takes her out of there. So what I'm picturing here is that this guy could be like, you know, an arsonist. When they set a fire, they show back up at the scene, they read all the newspaper articles. They're just so excited about what they have done, and they're sort of taunting, and they just want to feel the thrill of them being talked about, even though nobody knows who they are, in the papers. Now look at this case right here, the nutjob theory. The person knows that Nancy Guthrie, because of stories in the media, etc., is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, and knows that her case would be a very big case in the media. So they plan it out and go in and abduct Nancy Guthrie. Now, I think what happened was at like 1:47, the person went inside here and removed the camera, knowing that a car is going to be parked out there. Now, of course, there could have been another person. I'm going by the lone wolf nutjob theory right here. There could have been another person driving the vehicle. However, one person could easily do all of this as well. So the vehicle is maybe parked over here, as I've shown in other videos, or maybe it's parked over there, off the street. Then at 1:47, he goes over there and he removes the camera. And after removing the camera, and again, he only removed it because a vehicle was going to be parked there. He didn't care that he was on it while he was taking it off. He knew that he was being recorded. The camera, he had no idea if it was working or not, but assumed it was. So he knew that that portion would be recorded. So the only purpose then of removing the camera would be for something that's going to be happening later. And I don't think he'd mind if him removing Nancy was recorded. It's that the vehicle that he's putting her in is going to be on the camera, much like this image right here. You know, it wouldn't be as clear as that, etc., but that's what he was trying to avoid. And then after removing the camera, you might think that notifications were sent out to, either Nancy in the home or somebody else, and perhaps police would show up. They might not have known that there was no subscription, etc. In fact, I would almost guarantee you they didn't know that. So they wait 20 minutes or so, and then at 2:07-ish, maybe 2:08, they start driving back over like this, and then pull into the driveway, and then park right where I just had that vehicle in that AI image, right there. Then they get out of the vehicle, and they either go this way or that way. So as we know, there's a camera right here, and then there's also a camera right there. So one of those two cameras picked up motion when the person came into the backyard. There's multiple ways that they could have came through the backyard, maybe over the fence there, over the wall there, and then there's even a gate by Nancy's bedroom that you can walk through by the pool and then through another gate and get into the backyard. So that is when at 2:12, one of those two cameras picked up the motion. Somewhere over here, a camera was activated. And then they go inside the home, and we don't know exactly what time they went in. Apparently they propped a door open, and maybe even the back gate was propped open. The back gate is right here. It's right in that area, and then the door that they propped open is right underneath this undercovered area. And if you were looking down at it, the door is right there that goes into, I think there might be a laundry room right over here, and then there's a kitchen right over in this area. But apparently that door was propped open, and Savannah Guthrie even mentioned that. And then Nancy's bedroom is right here, and her bed was right where I'm circling right here. And so that means the person came in, and let's say they confronted Nancy at approximately, let's say, 2:15 or 16. Well, law enforcement knows exactly what time that is because her heart rate would have jumped up on the monitor. And then we know at 2:28, she was far enough away from the monitor that her pacemaker never contacted it again. And that's 10 to 30 feet. If from her room to the front door is over 30 feet. So it could be that she was sort of in that area, maybe even walking down the hall and it disconnected and they didn't even leave the house until, 2:35. But I think 2:28 is most likely the time that they left the house. So they take her out of the front door and put her in the vehicle and they drive away. All right, so the nut job theory is really just somebody out there that wanted to get a thrill and a rush off of the exposure out there, and they're also an evil person. So they abduct Nancy Guthrie, they kill her, bury her body somewhere, and then send the ransom notes, really sort of as a taunting measure, similar to the Zodiac killer who sends messages out and he just keeps everybody talking about it. Now, in this case, I think they sent the first 2 ransom notes and they had the same 2 crypto accounts. And I think they just put a real crypto account on there, knowing that they can't be traced, as sort of an authenticity measure, but weren't really expecting anything because they knew they couldn't prove that she was alive. And that's what everybody would want if you're trying to get a ransom, is that you would have to prove that the person was alive before anybody would decide to send you anything. And then after it seemed like the messages were just, hey, we want to know where the body of Nancy is, that's when they gave up. They probably got what they wanted. They saw how upset Nancy was, etc. But they've also just been able to keep continually watching and seeing people talk about it. Now, Savannah and the family are out of the news now, so they're probably not getting the same rush that they perhaps had before. But I think it's possible that that is all this person wanted, was to kill and then to taunt the family, and that's it. And everything makes sense when you use that. There's nothing that makes you go, well, here's what doesn't make sense. Now, if you can think of something that makes that not make sense, put that in the comments section, as well as the other possibilities that I discussed earlier, the ransom gone wrong, the burglary gone wrong, or the sexual assault angle. I mean, I put the reasons why those always have a sticking point to them, but the nut job theory does not have one. That everything that we're seeing is exactly what they wanted to do. And when you see the person walking around, like when you watch this, like I was saying earlier, he just looks casual. He's not worried about anything. I think this guy knew exactly what he was doing. And for him, it was just sort of a casual, fun time. He's not in any rush or hurry to do anything here. Okay? So again, let me know what you think in the comments section. If you could hit that like button, subscribe to my channel so you can join in on the discussion and maybe even call in. That would be fantastic. And that's all I got for you. So as I always say, everybody, until next time, be safe out there.